Hi, I'm Alicia Levine, and my favorite exhibit at the African American Museum was the sports exhibit because it was great to learn all about how African Americans impacted sports history. One certain athlete that impacted me there, they had Muhammad Ali's bathrobe, and that was really cool to see.
I think the entertainment and sports part of the African American Museum was especially interesting because it gives you a perspective of how the African American community was able to make their voice heard in untraditional ways when they were trying to be silenced by the outside world.
Was there a particular exhibit that you thought was particularly striking?
I thought that the exhibit about songs that were monumental in African American history and African American music styles being integrated into American pop culture was especially interesting because you don't think of it as something that's definitive of a people, but it can be incredibly important to different people for different reasons.
One interesting thing about this museum is that there are people who are still alive but are in the museum, which is kind of like not conventional for a museum because normally it's about like dead people. And like for example, Serena and Venus Williams are in it, and so are Gabby Douglas, and so is Gabby Douglas.
Is there a particular exhibit that stands out in your mind?
I saw Gabby Douglas's leotard and her bag that holds all of her warm-up stuff in it on a wall with like a whole bunch of other great athletes.
So something that I found interesting about the African American Museum was afterwards we ate at their, it was like a food court kind of thing, and it wasn't just like a regular one. They had special foods that they served, and they had some really good, they had beans and rice that were like specially made, and it was really good, and they also had some meats that were special.
So what you're saying then is that they had historic foods represented the kinds of things that African Americans ate?
So I feel like the museum as a whole was focused more on the accomplishments of African Americans and how they overcame their challenges than the challenges themselves. And it really provided a positive mood, you know.
How do you think this is different than a Jewish museum?
Well, in the Holocaust Museum, which is really the only Jewish museum I know of, when I went, I felt like it was like a lot more solemn, you know, and it wasn't really as celebratory of how the Jews and the Allied forces overcame the Nazis. It was more in remembrance of those who died.